There are phrases that aren't just words, but signals. Silent signals that reveal, even before actions, the true dynamics of a relationship. What seems tender, romantic, or banal at first glance can sometimes hide a much deeper mechanism, that of manipulation, emotional dependence, and the slow loss of self. In every relationship, certain words aren't spoken randomly. They reflect an inner state, a way of thinking, sometimes a need for control disguised as love. These words have the power to establish a subtle, almost invisible hold until you no longer recognize the person you've become. The danger lies not only in what others say, but in what you silently begin to believe. Today, we're going to decode these phrases, not to judge, but to give you back a powerful weapon: lucidity. Because seeing things for what they are is already taking back your inner power. 1. You have to accept me as I am. There are words that seem simple, almost harmless, but carry an invisible charge. This sentence is one of them. When spoken, it can give the impression of sincere openness, of assumed vulnerability. But in many cases, it hides a heavier reality: the refusal to evolve. A man who utters these words to justify destructive behaviors is not seeking connection. He is seeking permission not to change. He is not reaching out to grow together. He is drawing a boundary that says, "I will stay as I am, and the rest is up to you." Love was never meant to be a refuge for stagnation. True love inspires transformation, not stagnation. It is not a refuge for excuses, but a fertile ground for shared growth. When someone holds up this phrase like a shield, they are not showing their truth. They are masking their fear of facing themselves. Because growth takes courage. Recognizing one's shadows requires a strength that not everyone is ready to muster. A healthy relationship is based on balance. Two people who choose to move forward, to learn, to challenge themselves. If one person remains fixed in their position and demands that the other bear the burden of their rejection, this union is no longer a partnership. It's a one-sided burden. Behind these words, there's often an unconscious strategy to lead you to believe that your love must be a proof of unlimited tolerance. But that's not love. It's an expectation disguised as authenticity. This type of talk creeps in slowly. At first, you think it's a small compromise. Then, over time, this phrase becomes the norm. It justifies the same repeated injuries, the same unacknowledged behaviors, the same emotional gaps, and you begin to carry a burden that wasn't yours. The irony is that those who refuse to change often end up complaining that things are no longer going well, forgetting that they've remained the only one immobile in a relationship that requires movement. Authentic spirituality isn't about accepting everything that presents itself. It's about discerning what elevates from what confines. A true relationship must be a space for mutual transformation. And when one of the two closes the door to change, the entire dynamic freezes. The phrase, "You must accept me as I am," then becomes the foundation of a relationship that no longer breathes. It doesn't open the way to freedom. It erects a wall against any shared evolution. It's not your job to save someone from themselves. It's not up to you to bear their rejection. If love is real, it invites mutual questioning. And if this questioning is absent, it's not you who lacks love, it's the other who chooses immobility. Lucidity here is not about judging, but about seeing things as they are. When this phrase becomes an excuse, it is no longer a sincere declaration, but a silent barrier. 2. All my exes were crazy. When a man talks about his past, he is not just telling a story, he is revealing his way of seeing others and seeing himself. Behind this phrase lies a posture that at first glance may seem harmless, almost humorous, but in reality, it reveals a much deeper tendency, that of rejecting all responsibility and projecting onto others what one refuses to acknowledge in oneself. To say that all of your exes were crazy, toxic, or problematic is to erase your own role in every relationship. It's to turn every breakup into proof of your supposed innocence. Yet no relationship is one-sided. Every bond carries within it shared responsibilities, areas of light and shadow. When a man reduces all of his past relationships to a single conclusion, they were the problem, he's not being honest. He's constructing an image, a narrative that protects him from the mirror. This speech isn't trivial. It subtly sets up a dynamic where you too will sooner or later end up being the one he blames, because those who never look in the mirror are doomed to repeat the same stories. It's not bad luck, it's a pattern. This type of phrase, often spoken casually, is actually a declaration. I don't take my share of responsibility. And when a relationship starts with such denial, it's built on sand. There's also another silent dimension to this kind of talk. By devaluing the women who shared his life, he's testing your tolerance threshold. He's observing your reaction, measuring how far he can go in his narrative manipulation. The more you accept these words as mere anecdotes, the more you become the next piece in this well-rehearsed scenario. The story he tells about others will eventually be the story he tells about you. Wisdom here consists of listening beyond words. A man capable of recognizing his part in his past failures is a man who has looked into his own shadows. He does not need to glorify or smear anyone in order to exist. On the other hand, the one who paints all his old relationships in black seeks to artificially illuminate himself at the expense of others. This is not lucidity. It is a staged effort to never confront his own flaws. In a balanced relationship, vulnerability is shared. The past is recounted with nuance, with honesty. But when a man refers to all his exes as adversaries, he is casting himself as the sole victim, the only one in a world of mistakes. This is not a sign of strength. It is an emotional immaturity that reveals he has never truly learned from his experiences. What you hear at the beginning of a relationship isn't just a conversation. It's often a map that shows what the path will look like. And when the map is made up of accusations, one-sided stories, and repeated justifications, the journey is already written in advance. Someone who has never acknowledged responsibility won't change their script for you. They'll replay it over and over again. 3. If you really loved me, you would do what I ask. There is no phrase more insidious than the one that disguises love as an invisible chain. This declaration isn't a proof of love, it's a lever of control. It transforms a pure feeling into a bargaining chip. Instead of inviting a sincere encounter, it imposes a silent obligation. Prove your love by denying yourself. It's no longer a relationship, it's a disguised negotiation where your boundaries become obstacles, not legitimate benchmarks. When a man says these words, he's testing your ability to give in. More precisely, he's testing how far he can stretch your will. Because behind this phrase lies a predictable dynamic. Today, he's asking for a concession. Tomorrow, he'll demand your submission. This is how emotional dependence sets in, not through overt violence, but through subtle, accumulating pressures. And little by little, love ceases to be a space of balance and becomes a terrain of constant sacrifice. Authentic love doesn't demand submission. It exudes freedom, respect, and shared responsibility. Someone who truly loves you doesn't try to bend you. They try to understand you. However, this phrase reverses everything. It places their desire at the center and your feelings on the periphery. It establishes a hierarchy where your love only has value if it conforms to their expectations. You are no longer a free person. You become living proof that they measure according to their convenience. The danger is that these words aren't always shouted. They're often whispered gently, spoken in moments of apparent vulnerability, as if giving in were a way to love more deeply. But that's not love, it's a trap. Because if love must always be proven by submission, then it doesn't really exist anymore. What sets in is emotional dependence disguised as proof of attachment. This mechanism is formidable. You end up believing that if you refuse, you're the problem. You find yourself doubting your heart, your loyalty, your capacity to love. But the truth is that the one who imposes this kind of condition on you isn't looking for the truth. He's looking for power. Love isn't a contract to be signed under pressure. It doesn't ask you to erase yourself in order to exist. It allows you to be fully yourself, with your desires, your limits, and your dignity. It takes powerful inner clarity to recognize this form of manipulation. It doesn't present itself as aggression, but as a caress that hides control. It doesn't seek dialogue. It imposes a direction. And if you don't decipher it, you end up living in a relationship in which every decision is a test to pass in order to deserve to be loved. That's not love. It's not a test, nor a debt to repay. It's a space where two wills meet without crushing the other. 4. You are not enough for me. Some phrases don't just hurt. They seek to unsettle. This one is an attack disguised as an opinion. It's delivered with calculated coldness, sometimes even with a quiet smile, as if it has no bearing. But in reality, it targets the core of who you are. These words are designed to crack your self-esteem, sow doubt, and lead you to believe that you must excel not for yourself, but to earn external validation. When a man says these words, he's not talking about you. He's talking about his own emptiness. This judgment isn't a reflection of your worth, but rather a reflection of his insecurity and distorted expectations. There's nothing innocent about this phrase. It seeks to establish a silent hierarchy where he elevates himself by demeaning others. It's not an honest opinion. It's a construct designed to place you in a position of emotional imbalance. The human mind is vulnerable to this kind of invisible wound. You can be strong, clear-headed, independent, but if these words are repeated in a moment of emotional closeness, they seep deep inside. They begin to slowly erode you. A doubt sets in. What if he was right? This doubt becomes a corrosive force. This is no longer a relationship of equals. It's a terrain where you seek to deserve something that should never have been conditioned. The manipulation behind this phrase is subtle. It doesn't just say, "You're not enough." It also implies, "And I'm worth more than you." It's a way of shifting the emotional center of gravity. Everything revolves around one's perception, one's judgment, one's measurement. The more you try to prove otherwise, the further you move away from yourself. Because in this game, the bar is constantly moving. Today, it's not enough for one reason. Tomorrow, it will be for another. And one day, you realize you've lost yourself in a race that never had a finish line. True wisdom is recognizing that your worth is not dependent on the unstable perception of others. Your value is an inner reality, not a reward offered on the condition that you live up to a fabricated ideal. Whoever speaks these words is seeking your emotional obedience, not your authentic connection. This is not an invitation to elevate you. It is an attempt to dominate you. When you hear this phrase, something fundamental must activate within you. Lucidity. It's not always noisy. Sometimes it's just an inner calm that understands. This judgment is not mine. And that's precisely where your strength lies. The power to not internalize a wound that isn't meant for you. To refuse to become a prisoner of a standard distorted by someone else's ego. There's nothing more liberating than stopping, trying to prove your worth to someone who only sees it as a means of control. Those who see you as not enough often try to make you forget that you're already complete. It's not you who aren't enough. It's them who are unable to recognize a light they never learned to see. 5. Do what you want. This sentence seems banal. It may even seem like a sign of granted freedom, a proof of openness. But when it is spoken with irony, coldness, or innuendo, it becomes a silent weapon. It is not permission. It is a trap. It places the entire responsibility on your shoulders while keeping the other person sheltered from any transparency. It creates a gray area where you find yourself alone, navigating between guilt, confusion, and uncertainty. In this dynamic, the words are intentionally imprecise. The one who speaks them doesn't clearly say what he feels. He doesn't formulate what he wants. He lets a controlled tension hang in the air, and you, without even realizing it, begin to analyze every tone, every look, every silence, to guess what he's really thinking. This is exactly the ground where passive manipulation takes root. It's not a discussion, it's a silent game where he waits for you to make a false step so he can then reproach you for having done so. This kind of communication builds nothing. It slowly destroys trust because it replaces dialogue with emotional guesswork. The relationship becomes a waiting room where you're constantly trying to decode what the other person refuses to say. You begin to doubt your decisions, not because they're wrong, but because they're rigged. Because no matter what you do, you're already at fault in their mind. That's the power of the unspoken. It leaves a door open for interpretation, and in that openness, they can turn the tables on you at any moment. True love has nothing to do with this kind of game. It doesn't thrive on ambiguity. It thrives on clarity, assertive words, transparency. An emotionally mature person isn't afraid to express their feelings, even if it creates momentary tension. Because clarity protects, whereas innuendo destroys. The phrase "do what you want," uttered in this context, isn't neutral. It's a disguised invitation to feel guilty no matter what you do. What makes this tactic formidable is that it doesn't feel like an attack. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't impose itself head-on. It operates silently. But this silence is calculated. It encourages self-censorship, a fear of disappointing, and constant vigilance. And over time, it's no longer a relationship you're living. It's an internal surveillance where you walk on eggshells. Spiritual wisdom teaches that where clarity disappears, the soul is exhausted. In a healthy relationship, everyone has the right to speak frankly, to express their feelings, even if it's uncomfortable. But in a toxic relationship, this right becomes a minefield. This statement is therefore not insignificant. It reveals a desire to maintain control without naming it. It imposes tension without taking the risk of assuming it. And it's precisely in these moments that your inner strength is put to the test. Choosing clarity means refusing to play this game. It means responding with aligned actions, without forced justification, without falling into the trap of imposed doubt. Because in the end, emotional freedom only exists when we stop dancing to the rhythm of calculated silences. Wisdom is not about predicting the future, but about recognizing the signs that are already emerging. These phrases, as innocuous as they may seem, are not details. They are the cornerstones of a pattern that many ignore, to the point of getting lost in it. Protecting your inner peace isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's choosing to respect yourself before trying to save what doesn't want to be saved. Remember, the one who truly loves you doesn't play with your boundaries. They honor them. If this message resonates with you, please share it so others can open their eyes in time. Save this video to remind yourself when doubt tries to cloud your discernment. And most importantly, always choose your peace before fighting for what destroys it. Because true spiritual strength begins the moment you stop making excuses to protect your light.